I believe in the American dream because I've lived it. Like millions of Americans, I grew up in a small business family where I learned the values of hard work and determination. I was the first person in my immediate family to graduate from college, ran for Congress to serve upstate New York, and am proudly the youngest Republican woman elected to Congress in history. I am honored to support President Trump for re-election because I know that he is the only candidate who will stand up for hardworking families and protect the American dream for future generations. Since his first day in office, President Trump has fought tirelessly to deliver results for all Americans, despite the Democrats' baseless and illegal impeachment sham and the media's endless obsession with it.
Here's what you should know about Elise Stefanik. That's the New York Congresswoman that President Trump chose to replace Liz Cheney as the chair of the Republican conference in the House of Representatives, the Republican caucus. So yes, on the surface, absolutely, Stefanik is 100% in line with President Trump when it comes to his story about the election being stolen, about him being the rightful winner of the election, about the need for election security, all of that stuff. Stefanik is in lockstep with Donald Trump. However, it's really important to understand that that doesn't necessarily mean that she is the best person for Donald Trump in that position. Here's why. For one thing, Donald Trump has a long and fantastic history of choosing people who are super loyal to him right up until they're not. And also, by the way, a lot of them, that's their only qualification. They're not good at doing other things. In Stefanik's case, she's not good at being loyal. She was not a Trump loyalist from the get-go. She was an opponent of Donald Trump in 2016 and up until relatively recently. Now, that doesn't mean she's not genuine or whatever, but it does mean that she has a propensity to change these things. So her loyalty is by no means a given. But let's look at the actual substance of her as well. It's one thing to think Donald Trump is great, and yes, he's right about this one thing, but there are a lot of issues that come into play when you are president or were president and want to be president again. There are a lot of issues. There's free trade. This has been a big, big issue for Donald Trump. He's all for protectionism, for keeping out other countries, all this other stuff. Stefanik is from New York, upstate New York, near and economically dependent on another country. Okay, so she has some free trade DNA in her blood. That's one thing. Trump has two signature policy issues. Actually, that's not true. Certainly the wall is his big calling card, but there are two signature issues that he has. One of them is being a climate change denier. Stefanik said it was a mistake for Trump to pull out of the Paris Climate Treaty. A mistake. The other issue is, of course, his massive, I believe it's a $1.9 trillion tax cuts, which almost universally benefited the rich and actually hit a lot of the middle class, which, in addition to some rich folks, bore the brunt of the state and local taxes exemption, SALT, which it did away with. So, and she voted against the Trump taxes. She's also, I should point out, a Harvard graduate, okay? This is not a typical Trump person. And in fact, Cheney voted with Trump more often, I believe 92.9% of the time, than Stefanik has. 72, I'm getting the numbers wrong, but it's Cheney's in the 90s, Stefanik was in the 70s, I believe, 77.9 or something along those lines. Which isn't, again, necessarily, none of these things necessarily matter. It could be that she'll just be there and do whatever Trump says in that moment. However, this is a complicated machine. Democracy is a complicated machine. She's not just maintaining that position, she also has to maintain her position as a member of Congress. She has to get reelected. Her district, her congressional district in New York, is not a hard red district. It did vote for Trump, but not by overwhelming numbers. And if she's too loyal to Trump, that's going to piss off some of the moderates and Democrats who have voted for her in the past. We know this because they've said so in recent news coverage. And if she's too conservative, that's also going to piss off some of the moderates that she has built in her coalition. She has to keep a number of constituencies happy. That's the genius of our democracy. Not saying it's perfect. We have a lot of issues to work out. But it does require you to do these things. And Trump has shown pretty well in his history that he's bad at doing these things. And the people around him tend not to last very long, especially when they are asked to serve another constituency, which is exactly what he's now asking of Elise Stefanik.